They all have big views on the importance of quantum technology and how to see the market. It's approaching $1 trillion market, according to some, depending on how you measure it. In this presentation, I want to look at what are the potential applications of quantum technology that everyone's getting so excited about. Who are the current players and what are they offering now? And when can we expect to see real business benefits? So quantum tech isn't just like any other new tech. Quantum mechanics is the most fundamental description of nature that we have, full stop, no limitations. The new resources it offers, superposition, entanglement, quantum randomness, they're driving the second quantum revolution. And quantum computing offers a new type of computation with applications beyond any classical technology. And it's not just computing. Quantum communications also offers a unique new tool set, not just the often discussed QKD, but also a wealth of other protocols. And quantum sensing offers remarkable sensitivity, and its future role is often underappreciated. So first, let's have a look at what the applications might be. Quantum tech is set to have a wide impact and an unusually diverse one. Let's start with this picture of the global economy, drawn roughly to scale in proportion to global GDP. Though the potential impacts of quantum computing are widespread, notice that flagship applications such as cryptanalysis, breaking common current cryptographic codes such as the internet's RSA, and quantum simulation for material science or quantum chemistry, they will actually find direct use in fairly specific areas. Other potential applications, such as using quantum linear algebra as an accelerator for machine learning or quantum machine learning in general, that has wider potential application. And machine learning is taking over the world, after all. Optimization applications span particularly widely. It's a ubiquitous hard business problem. And both of these are notable because they also address the large services sector. However, there are potential roadblocks, and we'll consider these later. Because of the threat of that cryptanalysis, everyone now needs quantum safe cryptography. And because of harvest now, decrypt later type attacks, I do mean now. For most normal users, the new maths-based protocols of post-quantum cryptography will suffice. However, for users with enhanced security aspirations, interesting new quantum-enabled tools are also on the menu. Quantum sensing is set to have wide impact, and this market can appear fragmented, but as we'll see, there's powerful connections emerging across the quantum value chain. To better understand these applications, we have to look at where they lie within each industry's value chain. Here I show elements of the life sciences and health value chains, drug discovery and manufacturing in pharma, and also the use of these products in healthcare. Even at this top level, we can start to pick out segments where much of the cost currently lies, late stage clinical trials, manufacturing, treatment. We can also start to be more specific about where particular quantum use cases sit. In addition to the oft-discussed applications in simulating quantum chemistry, note that there's also opportunities for quantum sensors directly assisting R&D and in medical diagnostics. And importantly, quantum tech isn't the only thing driving change. And, many think that developments such as advances in omic sequencing techniques and precision medicine, that's drugs and therapies much more specifically tailored to smaller patient groups, are already set to disrupt these value chains. And conventional machine learning techniques are already leading the charge on this. This isn't an alternative to quantum. Quantum is set to be a powerful new contribution to this emerging machine learning tool chain. It's useful to keep in mind that this is an example of disruptive technology. That's where a new development is so radical that it threatens to disrupt the structure of the value chain and the business models it supports, not just incrementally change the segment margins. It's worth noting that in such cases, history teaches that it's often particularly difficult for large incumbents to react in good time. Companies such as Odyssey Therapeutics, Quantum SI, Protein Q, and Google's Isomorphic Labs are developing their own business models to exploit just this. Quantum is also set to have a wide and positive impact on sustainability. Here traditional industries face the significant challenges we all know about: oil and gas, mining, heavy industry, and other industries such as agriculture that need to adapt and help play their part in delivering change. Let's look in more detail at these before we look at how quantum can help. We've got, upstream and downstream oil and gas, as well as the utilities industry. We've got mining and metals. We've got agricultural as an important indirect consumer of energy, but also a source of alternative fuels. These are the quantum applications that I see, all in their own way drive better efficiency, safety, and security. But I don't put all of these up to discuss the detail. I just wanted to emphasize how diverse they are. Not just by area of impact, but also in the type of quantum application. Yes, there are high-profile moonshots, such as the quantum simulation to unlock more efficient energy, more efficient fertilizer manufacture, which is a big deal, but also material science for improved batteries. But also look at how widely quantum sensing can help. Detecting methane leaks, a real bad greenhouse gas, detecting hydrogen leaks. You don't want your new roadside gas filling station to explode. And smart infrastructure, it needs precise timing that we don't want to have to be dependent on GPS for. Smart vehicles also need robust navigation and control. Optimization, it's a natural challenge whenever we find logistics. Very diverse applications. Financial services sector is another high-profile target quantum adopter, in banking, in capital markets, in insurance. These are all areas of focus because of their large financial size, of course, and their existing focus on information technology as a competitive differentiator, and the proven ability of this sector to turn small incremental margins into big money. The applications here, though, are somehow different in character. There are multiple opportunities, but their type is narrower. The home run quantum simulation applications are absent. We've got multiple opportunities for quantum Monte Carlo optimization in pricing and portfolio evaluation and parameter selection for fraud detection. But these typically offer only a modest quadratic or heuristic advantage. Quantum sensing doesn't really feature much, perhaps better time holdover for time stamping in the back office, notwithstanding. However, there are other opportunities in comms. Quantum safe crypto is naturally a big concern here, and opportunities like blind quantum computing could be a surprise hit, though other advanced protocols in the back office for decentralized finance, another example of value chain disruption. A bit more about those later. I've been talking like quantum can just do all of this out of the box. Unfortunately, that's far from the case. To understand how soon different use cases can be realized, we have to understand what different quantum providers can offer now. This high-level view isn't going to be too useful. Let's break it out. Yes, in each main pillar of quantum technology, hardware is a key building block, but there are also major steps requiring significant software engineering and computational science skills. And it's not just in quantum computing, but also in quantum communications and in quantum sensing. Sensing includes time, and in practice often means imaging, and significant specialist signal processing is typically required. The enabling technologies are a common factor, and we're trying to understand how these all connect to specific applications. So when interpreting the utterings and emphasis of any particular quantum player, major, mid-size, or startup, we also have to watch out for the different business models that are emerging. Not all players are trying to do the same thing, but their business models, they're typically adapted versions of concepts we've seen in the conventional digital tech marketplace. So in the market at the moment, we see a combination of integrated device manufacturers together with fabless design and integrator players who put an emphasis on partnering with foundry businesses. If we focus on quantum computing, it's natural for such players to build out infrastructure as service offerings, already of growing importance in the R&D market. And the big push we see at the moment is platform as a service, aimed at hardware agnostic developers and high sophistication early adopters. And we're beginning to see some nascent software as a service aimed at end users, though the genuine offerings here are still very thin on the ground. Keep in mind who are the major players in the conventional cloud markets, AWS, Microsoft, Google, IBM. No surprise that we find these names cropping up again in the emerging quantum cloud tech stack. And let's look at that stack. It makes sense to start with two of the pioneers of the quantum computing stack, And this simplified model looks at what's happening at each level of the stack, up from hardware up through software. And you can see factbasedinsight.com for more details. Yeah, IBM has been, in my view, a clear early victor in the quantum software's initial awareness phase. It was others who first put quantum processors on the cloud. That really was Jeremy O'Brien at the University of Bristol in 2013. But it was the launch of the IBM Quantum Experience in 2016 that really succeeded in driving a step change in user engagement. Now renamed IBM Quantum, in 2021, it had 360,000 registered users, typically 25 quantum processors available online at any one time. To really appreciate the strategic aspect of IBM's thinking, I think you have to recall that in a narrow sense, this global quantum real hardware access, it wasn't really required, perhaps until recently. Broadly speaking, we can readily simulate quantum processors up to about 40 qubits. IBM correctly realized that educational and wider ecosystem engagement required the excitement of access to real devices. They also realized that helping people learn their quantum basics would build powerful business momentum. D-Wave has also had significant success with their own early phase strategy. First to launch a commercially available quantum computer in 2011, D-Wave initially suffered a wave of controversy in the sector's first hype versus realism war. And the debate continues today, of course, over its distinctive hardware strategy, though now all sides, I think, broadly accept the constraints and possibilities. That notwithstanding, I believe the success of D-Wave's distinctive user-led trials approach deserves attention. While it's been elusive to get applications definitively into routine production use, I find it very easy to believe that clients have seen business value. Businesses need ways to motivate their best and brightest to think about their business problems in new ways, and benefits flow back to the business by multiple means. And D-Wave continues to innovate in this ongoing battle. For many early hardware players in gate model quantum computing, creating their own full stack software was simply a matter of necessity. However, full stack doesn't imply a fully evolved platform offering. Google, Rigetti, Xanadu, Origin Q, Pascal. I could pull out the subtle differences of approach of each of these players in their mid-level stack. But this is an applications focused talk. So for more details, look at some of the fact-based insight content. We really don't know who or what hardware platform will ultimately succeed. Those further along the value chain will want to hedge their bets. Importantly, sovereign customers will want to make sure that they have access to quantum computing facilities within their own geographic control. And I think all of that's going to help the infrastructure as a service market to grow, serviced by a diverse base of players. Of course, early commercial adopters are typically seeking a platform that promises to be, to the maximum extent possible, hardware agnostic. And this fits well with the concept of platform as a service offerings. Leading conventional cloud computing majors, AWS, Microsoft Azure, they've joined IBM to contest the quantum cloud market. IBM Quantum has always emphasized the access it provides to its own quantum backends. Qiskit supports access to other provider backends. However, they're not currently fully integrated in the true PaaS offering. It's recently introduced new Qiskit runtime containers across its processor fleet, and that's a first step in its plans to build out this true serverless cloud offering. Amazon Braket have started to provide a challenge in this market by offering access to a multiplicity of backends: D-Wave, IonQ, Rigetti, Oxford Quantum Computing, QERA devices. Support for the popular Penny Lane library from Xanadu is another notable feature. AWS has been relatively late to the quantum stage, but I think now it's really emphasizing this "we're here to stay" message to make up for that. And Microsoft Azure Quantum, of course, exploiting its parent's competitive position in the wider cloud sector. Microsoft developed Q# as a dedicated language for authoring quantum algorithms, and there's a lot of resources around that. However, the recent addition of support for code authored in Qiskit and the Cirq frameworks is perhaps an acknowledgement of the influence of these approaches across the wider ecosystem. And Google, notwithstanding that it led the way in quantum supremacy, and it's got a leading position in the quantum sector because of that, and an honorable third place in the conventional cloud computing sector. However, its experience in moving from one-off science experiments to regular production service, that's been difficult. It's a lesson for all, I think, in how difficult that is. It's worth recalling as well that no cloud accessible processor has yet demonstrated a beyond classical calculation. Complementary strategy is to provide the tools that quantum software developers themselves want to use in the short, medium, and long term. Software community has a strong preference for open source tools, so the challenge is how to design a business model that works with this. One option is to seek to provide simply a better platform experience than that available elsewhere. And this combines well with the opportunity to cultivate interest from quantum newcomers and future commercial ventures that can be seeded from there, and with larger players who are really serious about avoiding lock-in with any single cloud vendor. Strangeworks pioneered this strategy for development platforms, but we're also seeing other very different approaches. Classic has a very interesting platform aimed at authoring algorithms at scale where the industry says it now wants to go. And Horizon Quantum Computing, that's got a particularly audacious long-term vision, aiming to support coding simply in high-level classical languages. So finally, let me come to players more focused on the top of the stack or at or close to actual applications. A challenge for many players here is how to build out deep and highly specialized quantum algorithms expertise into capabilities that can be applied against a wide variety of potential real-world use cases. A significant obstacle is that business insight is industry area specific, sometimes even geographically specific, and often requires a lifetime study in its own right. A key strategy is to combine algorithm smarts with enabling software and to engage with potential end users on the challenge of identifying and building out key application use cases. The objective is to recycle learnings into services that ultimately, from the supplier's point of view, can be productized. National quantum computing programs are often keen to help with this, but there's a trap. Such players don't want to be dragged into a conventional consulting business model. Scarce quantum algorithms expertise doesn't scale easily. And for all the fun of conventional consulting, it doesn't have the same upside returns of the quantum VC backers are typically seeking. A common approach is to offer quantum opportunity assessment and pilot projects, and the idea is to seek to develop these into big ticket retainer relationships with high profile clients. Clients, they can benefit from being seen as being part of being active in an important upcoming area, and it helps to kickstart their R&D activities. QCware, Zapata, 1QBit, Quantinuum, Multiverse, Pascal, via its recently merged Q&Co division, they're all active in this segment. Obviously I could name others. It's worth focusing for a moment though on Quantinuum, formed from the recent merger of Honeywell and Cambridge Quantum. I could have placed them on the infrastructure as a service slide earlier as an early hardware player. I could have put them in the platform as a service slide because of the prominence of their popular optimizing transpiler ticket. It's impressive to see that they're also here as one of the first true SaaS offerings with their Quantum Origin offering, which, though modest and specific in its own right, I do think is a genuine offering, a genuine quantum specific SaaS offering. Interestingly, the recent Alphabet spin-out that's been turning heads, Sandbox AQ, it doesn't immediately fit on this narrowly quantum computing chart, but more about that in a moment. I've talked about the wealth of potential quantum applications, and I've talked about the increasingly busy slate of quantum players aiming to help customers in this market. And that all sounds great, but is there a catch? And the devil is in the detail. This is a simplified view across the quantum technology value chain. And yes, it's a very busy chart. I'm not going to take the time today to drill down in detail, but for those of you who would like to hear more specifically about this, then there's a presentation talk on the quantum value chain available on factbasedinsight.com. One major point you can perhaps see just looking at the overall color key, all of those light blue areas, they're still only at an academic or demonstrator stage of development. And let me pick out some of the key messages. It's not certain what we can achieve with early NISQ-based devices. Variational quantum algorithms and other heuristic techniques such as quantum annealing don't offer a guarantee of a commercial quantum advantage. Quantum-inspired alternatives may threaten to eat their lunch at any point. Also, scaling up early architectures to implement quantum error correction and achieve fault-tolerant quantum computing, it's not easy. And in particular, the overheads of quantum error correction using existing architectures are very high. Many academics think it's not going to be possible to get a practical speed up from algorithms that only offer a quadratic advantage in the number of processing steps. And that, if you remember those earlier charts, that potentially hits all of those very interesting optimization applications. For quantum networks, there's a continuing fight over the respective merits of maths-based post-quantum cryptography versus physics-based QKD. I think there's a clear place for both. For advanced quantum comms, there are two schools of thought. Build prepare and measure style QKD networks first to build capabilities and momentum, or wait and aim to go straight to entanglement-based networks. The eventual benefits of entanglement-based networks are really impressive, but they're nowhere near as ready. For sensing, there's a lot of interesting activities, often with early potential applications. One of the more exciting developments across the field in 2021, in my opinion, was the proof of concept completed between Caltech and Google Quantum AI, demonstrating the exponential advantage that quantum machine learning can offer when it's directly pre-processing the coherent output of a quantum experiment. Or to put that in a more general context, the output of coherently networked quantum sensors. It's here we can more easily see where Sandbox AQ fits in. It's a B2B SaaS company combining AI and quantum know-how. However, its initial area of focus is on the migration to quantum-safe cryptography and adding value to quantum sensors. Very interesting. How soon does the market grow? In truth, I think we have to realize that the quantum sector and the people in it has split into three worlds. Attend a business-oriented quantum computing conference, and enthusiastic early adopters speak of broad quantum advantage in a variety of commercial applications as only a few years away using NISQ-era quantum devices. This is followed by early delivery of FTQC consistent with the roadmaps published by several major players. This is followed by even faster turbocharged quantum architectures able to execute the fullest set of quantum algorithms. I've drawn this graph on a log scale, and it's the belief, because it's the belief in such a journey that underpins the exponential growth in revenues that are assumed in many business plans and current business valuations. Attend an academic-oriented quantum conference, and you're more likely to hear polite skepticism about whether NISQ commercial applications will amount to much. Still open-minded, but skeptical. Making FTQC work and finding use cases that will actually do something useful with early modest-sized machines, well, that sounds more like threading the eye of a needle in this world. And solving problems that we really know will be useful require Goliath-sized machines. Attend a quantum comms-oriented conference, and you'll hear about a different world again. Here, the need is for a migration to quantum-safe crypto, and that leads to quantum-enabled networks, and then onwards to the true goal of an entanglement-based quantum internet. The benefits of the latter in supporting distributed quantum computing really are impressive. It's actually difficult to find a quantum sensing conference. It's a more fragmented field, and that's a shame because there are many interesting near-term applications. And the biggest long-term goal of all may be a quantum internet of things. Well, thank you. I hope you found this presentation interesting. And if so, please check out factbasedinsight.com.
Yeah, appreciate it, David. You stole my words, the devil's in the details. Lots of good stuff here. You started off talking about sensitivity advantages of quantum and not many people realizing that, this is available pretty soon here. And you talked about consulting. I wanted to say, so venture capital. Well, first off, my question is, how do you get all your information? Do you go to all these websites, these quantum websites? Do you talk to people on the phone, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, it's all of the above. One of the things that sorry, if I put your picture over here, I'll look at the camera a bit better. Um, One of the it's still a very fortunate time for the field at the moment. There's a lot of people that will turn up at conferences, and it's worth going to both the academic conferences and the business conferences. In my view, you get very interesting perspectives at both, and a lot of people willing to share a lot of information in those conferences still. And I think the field is still lucky that spirit's preserved. And of course, as you engage with that, if you take the path that fact-based insight's taken, where you then take some of that information and start writing it up and placing it in a context and saying back to people what you think about that, it naturally generates the conversation with them. And that's what means then when you go to speak to those guys, when you call them up, they want to take your call because they know you might be saying something about them. And then mostly people, they realize you'll have your opinion, but they at least want it to be based on the right facts. And so they'll comment on drafts, they'll answer calls, they'll answer emails. And that's a key way of making sure you can put out some reasoned thoughts about the field that is then backed up. People at risk can say, well, I respect where you're coming from, even if I think my product's better than you've realized. And I think that's a key part of it. I think one of the ways that business information will go, and you can already see it, and obviously we speak to each other in the business information side of the sector, is people are increasingly building up structured databases of information, and I think that's going to be very important going forward also.
So you touched a little bit on venture capital. I'm assuming, well, because you talked about StrangeWorks, some of the software ones too. How about applications, like for the people that are on the call here, and we'll open it up for questions in a second here. But what's your advice of getting into like a quantum computing application startup, that doesn't have the resources to make their own hardware, but can pull enough together as far as like doing Amazon bracket and some like D-Wave kind of stuff? I guess, what's your experience? Are there a lot of companies that are doing applications right now? And then any advice that you have for anybody on the panel here?
Yeah, I think you've probably one's got to think about this. There's probably two different groups there. There's the established quantum algorithms / application startup that we've become familiar with, and that includes the QCwares, the Zapatas, the one qubits, and I think that the challenge for those guys is, how can I continue to sustain my model in the market with the state of development of the market as it is, and not be sucked into being simply another consulting business. Because consulting business is great fun. I was a consultant for 14 years and I loved it. It was great fun doing it, but it's a limited business model in that respect. Every time you go out and sell a new project, you need new resources to deliver that project. That caps the commercial multiplier that your business can grow up to. Every time you've done one project, you've got to go out and sell the next project. That's that locks you into a certain style of organization in an organizational career journey in the organization.
Yeah.
And I don't think most of those are. There's a very much a place for management consulting, I think, in the quantum ecosystem, because to get this change into the wide swath of blue chip corporations that need to adopt in the end, and mid-sized corporations that need to adopt, you need that boots on the ground aspect that only a large management consultancy can bring, to give that depth, to give the ability to deliver change. So that's needed, but that's not the type of business. I think that market will, the existing consultancies will do very well in that market, because it's the type of thing they know how to do. They've seen how to do it in the digital revolution. But it's not, I think, the model that really those emerging quantum application leaders are seeking to do. They don't want to be sucked into that type of consulting. They want to have something ultimately they can productize, because they see that will be a better leverage for the unique scarce resource they have, and they see how it will build a business model ultimately explained to their backers, justifies a higher valuation multiple. Now, if you're talking to people that are wanting to get in more at the ground floor, I think it's very interesting. I think you have to carefully gauge the business model that you come into as you seek to make space for yourself. I think there's a great opportunity to leverage off effectively the free starting points that places like Strange Work give you, or even the IBM Access gives you. But I think you have to be very careful in understanding what the economics of your model is going to be. I think it's going to be a real challenge. We looked at those two extremes of, we're all going to get to broaden this quantum advantage in a couple of years. Oh no, there's going to be nothing. I think the truth will be somewhere in between. And you've got to make sure your business model is robust against, you can feed yourself against an envelope of how it emerges. And I think you have to be, I think it's a canny strategy to be very ready to harvest quantum inspired opportunities. I think it's a canny strategy to be able to harvest learning opportunities where you're helping teach organizations about the sector. And I think there's still a very big opportunity space for people that are coming in with deep industry side know-how, because really finding applications, whether they're quantum inspired applications or early quantum, or it's really a synthesis between specific quantum algorithmic expertise, which is difficult and rare, deep field, but it's also understanding industry, actual industry problems. What is the actual best practice now? How does that industry work, and how do you get something to change in a particular industry? There's still a tremendous opportunity for people to come in with particular insights around that industry side dynamic. And I think that creates opportunities for people that are perhaps moving their career in this direction because they do see the long-term applicability of these quantum resources that we're working out how to get the best out of.
Yeah. So I would say Productize, like for anybody listening, if you want to get into designing algorithms or, accessing hybrid jobs through Amazon, is that it's the same thing I'm facing too, because I'm like medical device and I'm working in a business class right now, kind of transferring the whole technical stuff into business. But, product market fit, I would say to people, do your research. Don't just hop into something. I think it happened to Russ, you might know. Was it one of the Y Combinator founders? He was designing something for 6 months, and then afterwards, it had no value. He learned not to do that again. But yeah, it's basically do your research. I'm going to open it up to questions here. There's a bunch of people that are usually on. We have Dan, Russ, you can go ahead. Lots of great information. Go ahead, Russ.
I had, well, first, thank you. Thank you, David. That was a great presentation. I've been a fan of Fact-Based Insight for a while, so it's great to meet you virtually. I don't know if you're going to share this presentation, but I'd love a copy if you do. It was really dense, and thank you for that. We've sort of debated on this. Debate's a little overstating it because I don't think any of us are familiar enough, but we've had somewhat discussions around D-Wave, and is it really quantum, and annealing versus gates. And I know D-Wave's now announced a gate-based future, and I know you included them on one of the slides. How do you think of annealing in the quantum sort of spectrum?
Yeah, well, it's certainly, I think it's broadly accepted now, it is a quantum device. It's certainly not a gate model quantum computer. And so it's very wrong to look at the, if you like, the proven applications of a large gate model device can have. It's clearly something very different.